One hunger crisis after another, a harsh reality throughout much of history, and Europe was no exception. That only changed in the mid-20th century with the Green Revolution. New strains of plants, pesticides, large-scale production of fertilizers, and new farming equipment stopped hunger, at least in the industrialized world, and later in some emerging nations as well. Food prices dropped steadily for more than 100 years. Now they're on the rise again.
Developing countries themselves used to invest 11% of their GDP in agriculture. In 2006 and 2007, they reduced that figure to 7%. They also brought it down. The net impact of all that is what you are beginning to see. Agricultural productivity growth rates going down, and more people in actual numbers actually are hungry today than they probably were 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Agricultural technology companies like Germany-based Bayer say we have to invest more in research.
Yields of grain worldwide are no longer rising by 2 or 3% annually as they were 30 years ago. We're reaching limits, although we of course have to continue to develop conventional seeds. In many countries, seed technology hasn't developed at all. Africa doesn't even have a seed industry or any centers for seed distribution.
There are between 400 and 500 million smallholder farmers out there. These farmers, most of them of course are in developing countries, and they are producing up to 80% of the food in these countries. Globally speaking, the small farmers are producing half or slightly more than half of the world's food. The fact is that these farmers have been ignored by their own governments and by the private sector. These sectors have focused on the needs of larger farmers.
There's no silver bullet. The only solution is to integrate the fields of politics, technology, and capital in certain key regions. We have to create options, along with new markets and new potentials, from the ground up, so that at the end of the day, the world's poor have more money in their pockets to buy food.
Small farmers in particular are at the mercy of price fluctuations on commodity markets. Governments that can afford to do so protect their farmers with state subsidies, but these are controversial.
There is a study that says that the $1 billion a day of subsidy, agricultural subsidy, the developed countries pay to their not-so-small farmers are actually reducing almost $50 billion worth of export from smallholders of developing countries in the world every year. That $50 billion of export reduction of developing countries is equivalent to all the global aid, ODA, that actually goes to the developing countries. So what needs to be done? Empower developing countries, smallholder farmers with knowledge, with technologies, so they can produce more in a sustainable manner.
Others say that yields can't be increased enough without the help of genetic engineering. But will small farmers be able to afford the technology?
The debate on GM crops must be addressed and optimized seeds given to people who need them. In countries where they can afford the seeds, farmers will have to pay. Where they can't, the government will have to, or the global community.
Private companies have stepped into the gap left by dwindling government interest in agriculture research. Innovation is therefore only occurring where there's a chance of making profits. The question is, will the small farmers also benefit in the future, or will they lose out?